there, that's a difference. Like that's something that kind of stands out. And Gregorius's average distance wasn't awful, but it certainly wasn't anything where you're like, oh, I'm really buying into him. I'm really believing this. So yeah, I see your point. He is somebody who there's kind of a danger zone with him in particular because the power has kind of been a big part of his game. I think if something does help him, it's the fact that you pointed out he's in a good park, should help him at home. The park's not going to change very much, but yeah, it could, that could have an impact on it. The ball could have an impact on his value. I feel like it's one of those weird, we don't know what we don't know. We'll kind of see what happens. I feel like we've heard talk about the ball before and it hasn't changed much. So we'll see. So there's 3 players in the 2-star tier. So this should be a pretty short conversation. So I feel like 2 of these guys one of them's a complete wild card and grab bag, and 2 of them are just pretty reliable, boring. You should get 20 home runs with a bad batting average. So there's Hae-Sung Kim, Paul DeJong, and Willy Adames. So yeah, I mean, not a lot to talk about here with the last 2.
I guess I'll just make a quick point about Adames, and you made him your value pick in the tiers article. It looks like what he did last year. It's a little hard to tell just from the top line stats, but his ISO jumped nearly 60 points. His pull percentage jumped from 38 to 55. His swinging strike rate jumped 5%, and his K rate jumped 10%. He was pretty clearly selling out for power. And I actually think that what you might be looking at in Adames is basically Paul DeJong. Like they might actually be very, very similar this year. Thinking about Adames more as like a 25 homer guy, but the average maybe falling down to like the 230, 240 range if that profile holds up. So I don't have a lot to say other than, yeah, those guys are probably decent power and not much else at this tier. And Kim is a complete wild card.
Yeah, I do want to talk about Kim a little bit because, I really, one of the better players to come over from the KBO in terms of his athleticism. I mean, there's no doubting that he's an athlete. He's a legitimate major leaguer. The challenge with Kim is he's coming from a league, and I mentioned this in the article. He's coming from a league that's off-speed pitches, a lot of junk, and the fastballs you see. And I remember reading about this when I did the back editing for the annual, and they talked about the KBO. You're not seeing a lot of high-end fastballs. Now he's in the U.S. where he's going to see those fastballs, and he's going to have to adjust. He's going to have to change his timing a little bit. I still believe in him. I still like him a lot. And I also think that I might have kept him in the 3-star tier because I know there's a lot of competition. I don't feel like the Padres would have brought him over to turn him into a utility or bench player. So I feel he's going to get an earnest opportunity, and that Jake Cronenworth, the Jerks, and Profar, the players are going to lose out, not Kim. But that being said, he's a risk, and he's a wild card. We don't know what we're going to get. And it could very well be that it just doesn't work out. I mean, we've kind of seen that with imports from the KBO as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
Hi, I'm Randy, and this is Dave.
We're the founders of Bombas, the most comfortable socks in the history of feet.
So comfortable, we sold and donated millions of pairs.
To sell and donate a lot of socks, we became obsessed with comfort.
We reinvented the sock from the ground up, adding comfort innovations along the way.
It worked. People tried them, loved them, told their friends about them,
helping us sell and donate millions of pairs.
Try them now at bombas.com/comfy and get 20% off your first order. That's BOMBAS.com/comfy.
Hi, I'm Randy, and this is Dave.
We're the founders of Bombas, the most comfortable socks in the history of feet.
So comfortable, we sold and donated millions of pairs.
To sell and donate a lot of socks, we became obsessed with comfort.
We reinvented the sock from the ground up, adding comfort innovations along the way.
It worked. People tried them, loved them, told their friends about them,
helping us sell and donate millions of pairs.
Try them now at bombas.com/comfy and get 20% off your first order. That's BOMBAS.com/comfy.
Love to own some shares of Kim. It's a hard sell for me at 169. Going ahead of people like Didi Gregorius and Paul DeJong and Willy Adames. So Yeah, it's just we don't know. It's hard to translate,
He
and
is
you
dropping. I mean, he's down at where did you say his ADP was?
I've got him at 169 since
He's dropped
January 1.
yeah, in the last I'm going the last month, so like he's dropped to 179. So he is dropping.
Okay.
And I suspect he'll drop more. And yeah, you're right. Like at his current price, I don't want him. If he drops around 200, that's interesting. Like that's a place where I might be like, okay, well, at this point, I might, take him. What's kind of tough is that in a 15 team mixed at that level, I think I want a little more certainty as
Yeah.
opposed to somebody where it's like, well, what's the upside here? And I know he's got speed, but he's really going to have to run if the power doesn't translate, and that's what's tricky.
It's also tricky in a weekly league if the Padres are shuttling players in, and if he's playing even if he starts five days a week, that's not really optimal, especially for your starting shortstop. So not knowing how that's going to play out is, adds another X factor to the whole thing.
Yes. In conclusion, Hae-Sung Kim is a land of contrast. So the 1-star tier, and we can do what we usually do here and nudge Samuel. And I'm not going to do the randomizer because pre-show you both were so excited about your 1-star options that I'm going to let you both go first. But I'm going to read off the names because there's a lot of names here. Wow, there are a lot of names. So there's Ahmed Rosario, Jorge Polanco, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, Nick Ahmed, Elvis Andrus, Willie Castro, Miguel Rojas, J.P. Crawford, Andrelton Simmons, Jose Iglesias, Wander Franco, and Orlando Arcia. So we're going to start with you, John. Who is your value pick in this very thick tier? Or are you going off the board?
I'm going to stay on the board because it's a very large board, and I should stipulate that this is more an OBP league special. Though I will look at this player in all leagues, and that's J.P. Crawford for the Mariners. I think.
I say that's an oh man. I like Crawford, by the way, not an oh man like I dislike him.
I think the skills are there. I think that he is still maybe in the growth phase of his career. He's only 26. He's a former, maybe not like top 20 prospect, but he certainly was a top 100 prospect coming up with the Phillies. I think so he's currently projected to hit first in a lineup that by the end of the year will probably be better than it is now, particularly if Jared Kelenic and possibly Julio Rodriguez can make it to the majors. You might have Mitch Haniger coming back at some point. It's not a complete wasteland. We still have the uncertain fates of Dylan Moore and Kyle Lewis in the mix too. So it's kind of more interesting than it has been. And I think with that OBP and an improving lineup, he could be a hidden source of runs. I think he's got kind of 10-10 profile in terms of home runs and steals, which, while it doesn't wow you, I think it's certainly legitimate in this 1-star tier. And like I said, I think there's more upside that we haven't seen yet. So I'm more enthusiastic about J.P. Crawford than a lot of the names here.
Yeah, so I saw a lot of Crawford when he was with the Phillies in Lehigh Valley, and I always liked him. And he was one of those players where I didn't necessarily see him do anything great as far as the stat line, but the athleticism was something I really liked and appreciated. And one thing I'll say about Crawford, so we talked earlier about Bogaerts and how his seasonal pace for steals, was 21 or 22, but he couldn't do it. So Crawford's seasonal pace for steals last year was 16. He's still 6. I could believe in J.P. Crawford stealing 15 bases. Like if you told me at the end of 2021 that J.P. Crawford had 15 steals, I wouldn't be surprised. And that would make a difference to his value. If Crawford's only going to steal 5 bases, I think that kind of has a negative impact. And that's one thing about this, Axe or Pacoda projection. It projects him for 2 steals. I don't know why. I mean, I know why. I know how a projection system works, but that feels light to me. I think he's going to steal more bases, and at the very least, that makes him an intriguing player in this tier. So Samuel, who do you have here?
So oddly enough, I was going to pick J.P. Crawford before John grabbed him because I'm also very intrigued by him.
Dang! I'm sorry. I just
However,
assumed you were going to take a Ranger.
Well, I mean, and that's also a very fair assumption. I can't fault you for that. But I told y'all before the show I had 3 guys. So I will go to my second one. And oddly enough, yes, let's talk about Isaiah Kiner-Falefa for a minute, because mainly not because he's actually the most interesting person left on my list. It's actually Nick Ahmed, mainly because I just like power. I'm a sucker for power. But Falefa is interesting because we talked a little bit about him pre-show, and I saved it for here. I think that he's definitely a 1-star player. Like, I know, Mike, that you're kind of probably the high man on him on the fantasy side based on your article, which is fair. And I know that last year we had a lot of discussion about him on the show because he was showing that power breakout in pre-COVID spring training. So the hopes were high. And he's definitely the category of much better real life player than fantasy player, just because the defense is really good. And any player that has just outstanding defense, unless they're just, a monster at the plate, is going to be a better real life player. No shame in it. I think there's some room here because he's going to play every day, either at shortstop or at third. It's really unclear what they're going to do at third at this point, as we talked about last week. But I think a full season of him getting to be at his current size, be in a position that he feels comfortable with. Do I think you're going to get like a 4-star or a 3-star player out of him? No. If he does, all of us will be surprised. But if you draft him as a 1-star player and you get something close to like what Kim or DeJong will bring you out of his draft spot, that feels like a win every day. If you can discover a tier up in the 1-star tier, I think it's plausible. And there's a ton of names that could deliver that in this particular tier because there's just so many interesting, unique players. But I think if you're looking for a guy that's going to get playing time on a team that is, rebuilding and looking to see what their young players can do, if you need a consistent guy who's going to flash probably a little bit more power than expected, he's going to be pretty consistent, decent on the base paths, but is probably going to play somewhere between 120 and 140 games. Like, that floor is something to really like. It really is. Maybe more in AL only than mixed, I think. You're probably going to find more value in an AL only there. But in general, I mean, it's a nice little pickup at the back of your draft.
So
yeah, I like him.
Would just say, I just want to add a couple things. Just first of all, the draft slot right now is 286. I like him there because if he is indeed going to play every day or close to every day, I don't know what I'm going to get. But I'm kind of curious to see how it shakes out. I mean, I could see, cutting him after a month if it's not working out. Like, if you're not getting the speed, the average is dipped, and you're not really getting the power, that's not really worth holding on to. But I also like that he's eligible at third and shortstop. I mean, he lost his catcher eligibility, sadly.
Except in Yahoo, apparently.
Does he still have it in Yahoo? Okay.
Yeah, it's been a whole joke on the CBS podcast.
Because he looked at the catcher's mask in the dugout one day, so he got Yahoo eligibility. Yes. But he's available. I mean, he's eligible at both corner and middle, so it gives you that flexibility. So, yeah, I like it. I like it there. He's interesting. I'm just fascinated by a player who's kind of made that journey on the positional spectrum. So,
yeah, and you mentioned his playing time. Again, there's no set third baseman at this moment. There's obviously some contenders, but also and I think we talked about this a little bit with second base too. Texas is absolutely moving towards a rotational infield where they want guys that can play multiple positions.
Yeah.
IKF is like the textbook of that.
He could even play. It's the Giants. It's a lot of teams now.
Yeah. When you're carrying 12 hitters, you kind of need players like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, IKF can legitimately play all 4 positions. Now, he can't play them all Gold Glove. Like, he's played second. he's played first. Like, if you absolutely asked him to do it, he could go do it. Like, it's kind of ridiculous how